Welcome to Waveform Science. I'm Jeff Hagan. Tonight we're going to cover an operation that most of Bluetti's customers are never going to have to do. This is more of a diagnostic operation, not something that everyone is going to have to do pretty much ever in the lifetime of the device, but it comes up occasionally on the forums, so it's worth it for me to record a video to show how to do it so I don't keep posting it once a week out of the, 11,000 people in the forums. So what the process is resetting the battery meter. So first off, what's a battery meter? The Bluetti devices all have an indicator on the screen. You're seeing this in the corner right now that show the percentage of charge, also more technically accurately called the state of charge of the device. That's the percentage that the device believes the battery is at. Sometimes that meter can actually be wrong. In lithium iron phosphate technology, the batteries themselves, the voltage discharge curve is extremely flat. You can see that now. Unlike old battery technology where the discharge curve was more of a line going from one side down to the other, where with that technology you could basically just stick a voltmeter on the battery and tell what the percentage is. Lithium iron phosphate, the discharge curve is so flat that it's very difficult to tell, especially in the middle of the curve, exactly what your percentage is. So that means that they need a little bit of smarts in the system to be able to tell where you are along that discharge curve. Anytime you add smarts, there's a possibility of the smarts getting confused. So if you wind up with the issue that we're going to describe here, this is how you fix it. So first off, what does it do and what doesn't it do? Resetting the battery meter is just that. It resets the meter. It's not going to make the battery better or less better. It actually doesn't affect the battery at all. Battery doesn't care. The meter, however, tells the charging circuits when to start charging and when to stop charging. So if the meter is confused, you will have odd charge or discharge cycles. So what do you need to look for if you think you have a problem with your battery meter? It's either charging too fast, charging too slow, or discharging too fast. One of those three things. So let's say I have this AC200 Max here right behind me. It usually takes about 4.5 hours to charge from 0 to 100% on a single adapter from the AC wall outlet. Let's say instead of 4.5 hours, it takes 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, it says it's done charging. Well, the AC wall outlet adapter cannot possibly put out enough power to charge that battery in 15 minutes. The wall would start on fire. Just that much power cannot go through it in that amount of speed. So if it says it's done in 15 minutes, that means it's lying. It's wrong. It's not done in 15 minutes. It's confused. Same thing. If it's charging and it takes 4 hours, that's normal. If it's charging and it takes 12 hours and it still says after 12 hours that it's not done charging, well, the battery in the device only holds so much power. So more power isn't going to fit. So how does that work exactly? Well, again, the meter is confused. It's continuing to run the charger even after the battery's done charging, which, by the way, doesn't actually hurt the battery. It just wastes time. The other option is incorrect discharging. So the unit can think that it's at 80%, 90%, whatever, when it's really at 10%. So you'll see that meter drop off a cliff. And I'm going to show you some very specific examples of these that I've recorded in devices that I've messed with in the past, so that you can see exactly what this looks like. These particular videos that I'm putting on, these are from an AC500 test review unit. These are from a very early version of the firmware, and by the way, the cause of this particular issue was identified and fixed. But I'm going to show you what it looks like on the actual display. First off, I want to call out for these first two videos, I'm not using any sort of time compression on the videos. I do tend to squish videos down to make them fit, so we don't have to sit around for 4 hours and watch a charge. But in this case, I actually want to show you what it looks like when it's not time compressed. So let's bring that video up. Okay, now you can actually see the display here. And we're just humming along at 89% with a 900 watt load on it. And whoa, now we're at 49% and now we're at 0. So we went from 89% to 0 in about 3 seconds. So that tells you, if you see something like that, that tells you that your battery meter needs to be recalibrated. That's what that's all about. Second video, let's bring that one up. So here we are. Chugging along at 550 watts, charging, 16% battery, 17% battery. Again, no time compression on this video, 18% battery. Continuing to chug along, 580 watts, 19% battery. Now, this battery is a 3 kilowatt battery hooked up to an AC 500. It is supposed to take 3.5 minutes per percentage to get that battery up if it's only charging at 500 watts. So this is charging altogether way too fast. And by the way, when I was done with this particular charging load, it turns out that actually the grid charging meter that said how fast it was charging was in fact accurate, and the battery meter that was calculating the percentage was wrong. So a battery meter recalibration did in fact fix this. So let me show you the third example here. Third example. This one I have sped up. This one I've sped it up 4 times. And we can see we're charging, and you can see the time in the upper right-hand corner. We're charging, we're charging, we're charging, we're still charging, we're still charging, we're still charging. The meter's going nowhere, and then it just kind of stops, and then it starts again, and then we're charging again, and the meter goes nowhere, and it stops and starts, and it stops and starts, and stops and starts, and the meter goes nowhere. So what's happening here is it thinks the battery isn't full when the battery really is full. It's going to continue to provide voltage to the BMS, which is then going to do absolutely nothing with that voltage because the battery is actually full. But the meter is confused, so it's not cutting off the charging. That doesn't actually hurt the battery, it just wastes your time because it never is going to finish charging. So if you have any of these scenarios, there is a procedure you go through in order to fix the problem. In short, the procedure is drain the device to 0 at a constant rate. It doesn't really matter what the rate is as long as it's constant. One caveat about that rate is you want to make sure that the rate is not too fast that you wind up with the device shutting down due to heat problems. So if you take a unit that, let's say the EB3A, little EB3A, it can discharge at 600 watts. If you discharge it at 600 watts, it's not actually going to get to 0. It's going to cut off before it gets there. Same with the other Bluettis. So I would say a maximum discharge rate would be about half of the rated output power for this operation. But where it is in that half, exactly where it is, doesn't matter so much. Okay? So once you've discharged it to 0, you're going to recharge it, and you're going to recharge it at a constant rate. Again, doesn't matter so much what the rate is, but it does matter that it's constant. So it's really hard to get constant charging off solar. Basically means you cannot do this operation with a solar panel. Then when you're done with that, it's done. We're going to show you what that looks like. And by the way, at the end of the video, we're going to have a caveat about something with the modular solar generators that do not have a battery in the main unit. Let me show you the setup for the discharge. All right, here we are looking at the AC200 Max. We're about to do a full discharge. So what am I going to use to discharge it? Well, I have a little cheap Amazon heater. Again, you don't need very fancy, expensive scientific equipment for this type of a discharge. This is not a controlled discharge. It doesn't have to be calibrated. You're just trying to get the juice out of the battery. So, take the plug, we'll plug it in. Turn on the power. And we're going to let it empty. Remove the cord so I don't melt the board. There we go. Now this is going to take some time to discharge. I'm going to watch the screen and I will be back. Okay, the discharge has completed. The battery is now completely empty and the unit has turned itself off. By the way, when you do this complete discharge, you don't stop when the meter hits 0%. Let it keep going until it shuts itself off. It's actually really critical to how this works. It's got to automatically power itself off, so let it keep going until it's completely out of juice. Then, don't let it sit like that for very long. It's actually pretty bad for the battery to let it sit empty. So I'm not even going to let this sit overnight. when I do one of these operations, which luckily I don't have to do very often, even with testing beta units, I don't have to do this very often. So when it does run out of juice, recharge it right away. I've got the power brick already set up here, ready to go. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug my load. I want to have nothing on there at all. No loads at all. Take this away. Okay. So you've got all the ports empty here. Everything's empty. Now I'm going to plug in my charger. Plug that in. This will give me a good constant charge rate. Now I'm going to turn on the power to the charger. Switch is back here. And in just a moment, I'm going to turn the device on, and we're going to watch the screen and watch it recharge all the way back up to 100%. Okay, the light on the charger has turned green here. We're at 100%. The charge cycle is completed. At this point, I can turn the power off. Unplug the adapter. And the meter reset procedure should be completed at this point. It is possible, but unlikely, that you may need to repeat this procedure more than once. Very unlikely. I've only ever seen it once, but I had one that was so bad off I had to do it twice. So it is possible that this doesn't fix it, but almost all the time this will fix your battery meter. If this doesn't fix it repeatedly, then it's time to get a hold of Bluetti's support and ask for additional questions from them. Now, before this video ends, we're going to go into one quick additional note regarding the modular solar generators. One caveat about running this with what Bluetti calls their modular solar generators. What modular means in this case is any solar generator, like say this AC500 here, that doesn't have a battery in the head unit. In this case, the only source of power is this external battery because I've only got one battery hooked up to it right now. In the case of the modular solar generators, if the battery is at less than 1% state of charge, it will not reliably reconnect to the head unit when you turn it back on. So if you run it until it's completely dead and it powers off due to overload or under battery voltage, you may not actually be able to turn it back on because the battery may have such a low state of charge in it that it will not even reconnect. So before you perform this operation with a modular solar generator, make sure you have figured out how you are going to recharge the battery in case it does not reconnect. There are two methods I'm going to suggest. Method number one does not cost any extra money beyond what you've already paid for an AC500 because these are not cheap devices. In the box with the AC500 head unit is a car charging cable. It's got an XT90 connector on it, right here. A car adapter on the other side. You can take the battery, and this will plug directly into the battery itself, not into the head unit. You'd unplug the battery from the head unit, you'd take the battery itself, and you'd car charge just the battery. Now, car charging a 3,000 watt hour battery off a cigarette lighter jack is going to take forever and a year. So you don't charge it all the way up. You only have to put 1% charge in it. That's going to take a little bit over an hour. Now, one other thing is if you are going to charge it from an actual car and not a 12 volt power supply, which is my next suggestion, is get a 12 volt power supply and plug this into it. If you charge from an actual car, the engine's got to be running because you will destroy your car battery by trying to charge a much larger battery off your car battery. Your car battery is going to go to zero and your car won't start. So if you're going to use the car charger in a car, have the engine running for an hour or two, just idling in your driveway, please, not in your garage with the door closed, but just idling in your driveway, and don't have somebody steal your car while this is happening. So that's one option. This is comes in the box. It doesn't cost you anything except an hour or so of gas for your car. The next option, which costs some money, but this is to me a far preferable option, pick up one of the T500 power adapters or a T400, your choice. And that will allow you to plug the power adapter directly into the side of the battery. So the battery can be disconnected from the head unit. The charger will plug into the battery and it will recharge the battery directly. In that case, you can give the battery a full 0 to 100% charge from the T500 adapter without having to plug it in at 1% or 2% or whatever to get it back onto the head unit to finish the charge. So that'll give you a full 0 to 100% charge with just the external charger, and that will also reset the meter. So what we've looked at today is resetting the battery meter on Bluetti devices. Thank you all for watching the video. As always, I am not compensated in any way for making these videos. Bluetti does not pay me. I do work in tech, but I do not work in the solar generator industry. I make these videos because they're fun, and as long as people like looking at them and I keep having fun making them, I'll keep making them. Have fun, everybody.